Hey guys, we are doing our quick Diddy recap week 3. So some of the names that have taken the witness stand for the prosecution has been alias Mia. She was a personal assistant of Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, Diddy for about 8 years. Another name that you guys might be familiar with or have seen on the press and media headlines is Capricorn Clerk. Capricorn Clerk was also a personal assistant. She started off as a personal assistant and she went on to be like a brand director. She had like a really big title. She eventually ended up being like a very high titled position under Sean Combs' Empire, the Bad Boys label. And there was a LAPD officer, another LAPD officer, and there was also a Los Angeles Fire Department personnel that also took the witness stand. Someone else that took the stand was celebrity stylist Dante Nash. Prosecution has stated that they're kind of ahead of schedule because there are some witnesses that they had decided not to call onto the stand. Diddy's defense has stated that because of the change in strategy that the prosecution is leaning towards or going with, they have to change their strategy as well. So they are anticipating that this will all be finished, closing arguments, maybe mid-July. So some of the highlights from the third week of the Diddy trial was that Nash has stated that he had witnessed Sean Combs beating his ex-girlfriend, Cassie, multiple times, multiple locations, and multiple different events and occasions and whatever. He stated that at one point he asked her, why don't you just leave? And she said, and according to him, she stated something like, well, JC's already taken. Who am I going to be with? I think that comments kind of painted her in a bad light. I'm not sure if, even though he was a prosecution's witness, I'm not sure that looks favorably on Cassie because it sounds like, oh, okay, so you were willing to put up with all of this. You didn't want to leave because maybe there was a certain luxury life or lifestyle that you were willing to sacrifice yourself to. Because that is like a weird response, right? Like what? Like I would expect a response to be, I don't want to leave because he's going to continue to beat the shit out of me. It might make it worse. He might kill me, whatever. But according to Nash, anyway, her reply was, JC's already taken. Who am I supposed to be with? Anyway, I don't think this really hurts the prosecution's case, though, just for the fact that there's so many allegations against him. And, prosecutors, they're going up first with their arguments. So you're getting to hear the prosecution side of the narrative first. And so far, it's already painting him in this really awful way. So I think despite that, it doesn't hurt the prosecution's case. It's not something that's going to be lingering in their minds, in the jurors' minds. However, though, the defense, they go second. So we still haven't heard the defense's argument. And the defense's argument is basically like, yes, he's a woman beater, he's a pervert, and he's a piece of shit, but that's not what he's being charged with. He's being charged with RICO charges, and they're trying to say that he's basically the John Gotti of the Bad Boy label record. So we'll wait for what the defense does on the stand. One of the other highlights from the third week of the trial was that the LA Fire personnel that took the witness stand, he stated something like there wasn't any fingerprint. He opinioned that, he thinks that fingerprint evidence were destroyed. This was a question that was asked by the prosecutor. It was a leading question. Sean Combs' defense objected to it, asked for a mistrial based on that. The judge ruled against it, but the judge did strike it from the record and instructed jurors to disregard that statement. So the leading question from the prosecutor was, do you think Sean Combs was the one that destroyed the fingerprint evidence? And the request for dismissal was that Combs' defense felt like, that even though you're instructing them to disregard that statement, you can't take it out of their brain. They're not going to disregard it even though you're instructing them to disregard it. It's like once you hear something or once you see something, you can't unhear it and you can't unsee it, basically. But the judge, he ruled against the defense, saying that he didn't feel like it was prejudicial enough to damage the defense's argument. The leading prosecutor for the government is actually the daughter of James Comey. Now, I don't know if you follow politics like that or not, but if you do, James Comey was actually the FBI director of the Trump first-term presidency, and his daughter is actually the leading prosecutor in this case. Anyway, the LAPD officer stated on the witness stand that he saw a black Escalade near Kid Cudi's property, but that he didn't stop it or anything because he wasn't sure that a crime had even been committed, but that he made sure to remember the license plate. And he said that when he ran the license plate, it was a vehicle that was registered to Bad Boys record label. According to Scott Muscati, which is the real name of Kid Cudi, he stated that his dog was traumatized because his dog was locked in like a bathroom for hours or whatever, and that it was around Christmas time that there were Christmas presents that were opened, all that other stuff. With the Molotov cocktail, the fire personnel stated that the fire was contained because the bottle didn't explode. The flame basically died out and like it was contained in the bottle, and that's why there was no explosion or whatever else. Mia, which is one of his accusers, she stated that, she worked for him for 8 years and it was on and off. He has sexually assaulted her on multiple occasions, but that it was very sporadic and that enough time had passed between each assault that she didn't feel like she was comfortable enough to report it. She also said she feared retaliation and all this other stuff. And during cross-examination, his defense, Sean Combs' defense, did show like contradictions in her testimony, stuff like Instagram posts of her praising him and stuff like that. And there were text messages and emails where she was basically very upset that Sean Combs had decided to basically close the studio that he was running. She had some sort of like executive title at a studio that Sean Combs had opened and that was affiliated with his Bad Boys label. And, she was upset about it. She had this email that stated something like, what am I going to do? I'm going to die. I don't know what I'm going to do, all this other stuff. And she has sent that email to Combs's chief of staff. And on the witness stand, she stated that they were in litigation fighting over a severance pay and that she was given a settlement of $400,000, but she only received $200,000 after giving the other $200,000 to her attorneys for attorney fees and whatever else. So they presented, Combs' defense presented those contradictions with, what her allegations are. Like, why did you continue to work with him for 8 years? And, other stuff like that. Like, can you explain why you wrote this? Or like, especially the email where she was basically, it seemed like she was very upset. She seemed like she was getting paid really well. And it seemed like she was really upset when Combs decided to basically shut down that studio company where she was working at and making a good paycheck. Now, Capricorn Clerk, she stated that she was with Sean Combs and that she was kidnapped at gunpoint when he decided to go to Kid Cudi's house and, do whatever. She stated that, she tried to get a hold of Cassie because she was like, we're all going to be killed because of Cassie, basically. And she stated that, when Combs found out that Cassie was dating Kid Cudi, that like he basically freaked out and whatever, and that she was with Combs when he went to the location to try to break into the house or did break into the house, and that she had tried to warn Kid Cudi about the situation, and she tried to do that by getting a hold of Ventura to let Kid Cudi know. She also stated that like after that incident that she was basically let go for like some bullshit reason, according to her. And she also stated that when she was hired, because she had an affiliation with Suge Knights and the whole, East Coast, West Coast beef, she herself doesn't have an association with the East Coast, West Coast beef, but she had a deep association with Suge Knights and his whole whatever entourage, whatever you want to call. And because of that, when Sean Combs found out, she claims that he threatened her, that he would like kill her and whatever else. Suge Knights actually did a prison phone call interview with Chris Como. I'm paraphrasing, this is not verbatim, but he basically stated something like, if you're going to have a trial, you need to bring everybody into it. You can't just put it at Sean Combs' feet, basically he's stating that like, if you're going to go the route of like RICO charges, then everybody has to take the fall. You can't just put it on Sean Combs' feet. But he feels that, Sean Combs is wrongfully being prosecuted. Anyway, that jailhouse interview is up if you want to listen to it. I thought that was really surprising because if you guys follow the East Coast, West Coast beef like that, East Coast, West Coast rap of like the early 90s, then you guys know the whole thing with Tupac and Biggie and Suge Knights and Sean Combs and whatever else. So it was really surprising to hear Suge Knights more or less come out in support of Sean Combs. I mean, I don't know if you would consider that support or not because like legit, the man is in a California prison, state prison, so whatever. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And of course, the other highlight of week 3 is that Cassie gave birth to a baby boy on Tuesday of last week, and the jurors and the jury and the courthouse heard about it when Dante Nash was giving his testimony, because one of the questions that were asked of him was if he was close to Ventura or when was the last time he spoke to Ventura, and he stated that like yes, he is close to Ventura, and the last time that he spoke to Ventura was when he congratulated her on her new baby that was just born. And there you have it. That is a quick recap of what's been going on in the 3rd week of the Diddy trial. So far, how well do you think the defense is presenting their arguments? Well, they haven't presented their argument yet, but how well do you think the defense is doing on their cross-examination of the prosecution's witnesses? How well do you think the prosecution is presenting their case? If you were on that jury right now after the conclusion of week 3, do you think that the prosecution has made its case so far? Of course, we still haven't seen the defense do their thing yet, but so far, what do you guys think? Let me know, guys.